Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. You know, for the last several months, I've been sharing with you about the challenge of Christ. And that challenge, very simply stated, is that Jesus said he was coming back in the first century. He supposedly did not do that. Therefore, he cannot be the Son of God. I have been sharing with you that claim, that rejection of Jesus that comes from the atheists, the Muslims, the Jews, the skeptics, is not a valid objection if we understand the Bible correctly. And this is such an important issue. One of the reasons that it's so important, all right, is because of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, I am filming this on March the 22nd, okay? This program will be due to air April the 10th, 2020. As I filmed this morning, I've been on the internet. I've been reading all of the latest statistics. I have been reading article after article after article, both political as well as religious. And it's really quite disturbing to read so many of these articles that in many instances seem to be intent on spreading fear and paranoia. Unfortunately, there are some who are claiming to offer a miraculous cure. And unfortunately, some people are going to be scammed out of their money as a result of that. Now again, I'm filming this about 3 weeks or so before it will air. I obviously do not know if or how much worse the pandemic will get in the next 3 weeks, or I do not know if some of the protocols that are being followed, social distancing, quarantining, I do not know if some of the drugs that are currently under clinical testing, even human testing, I do not know how effective or not they will be in the next 3 weeks or so. I do know that there are some rather hopeful signs about the Corona pandemic. Now, I would love to be able to come to you today and to say, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. A cure has been found, but obviously I cannot do that. But once again, when a person is careful in their research, when they do not react with fear and paranoia, sensationalism, then there really, truly are some very significant things that are going on. Now, the purpose of today's program, and I hope that I have time to really get into the point about the Bible and how the biblical narrative actually gives us calm here in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. Okay? Because listen to me, folks, I am absolutely convinced that there is calm, there is peace, there is assurance and reassurance to be found in the Word of God, even in the midst of this horrible situation. In the meantime, before I get to those points, what I want to share with you is just the hard, pragmatic, medical facts that are available to us right now. Now, in last week's program, I shared some historical facts with you about whether or not the current pandemic is one of the worst things the world has ever seen. I am hearing that. I am reading that. I am hearing from people who are literally scared out of their minds, it seems, about whether or not this is the sign of the end, whether it's, and I'll get more into this a little bit later in the program, about whether or not this is the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Listen, the prophecy pundits are already all over YouTube telling us, this is it. This is a sign of the end. And they are wrong. Flat, dead, wrong. Now, isn't that reassuring all by itself? Now, once again, last week I shared with you some hard, cold historical facts about whether or not what we are seeing in the world today in regard to the coronavirus, whether or not it is, in fact, the worst thing the world has ever seen. I want to reiterate those, all right? Because these facts alone should help alleviate your fears. Now, please do not misunderstand me here. I'm not saying do not follow the doctor's orders. I am not saying this is not serious. I'm not even saying this will not get worse before it gets better. That's the way all pandemics do. They reach a spike, and then they are cured, or even they go away on their own. So do not think for even one moment that I'm depreciating the seriousness, that I'm disparaging the seriousness of the coronavirus. What I am trying to do is to bring some sanity to the discussion. Just as, whether you like him or not, President Donald Trump has been trying to do the same thing. And all of the medical authorities that he has with him on the stage for every news conference are doing the same as well, as they tell us progress is being made. Is it serious? Of course it's serious. It's terrible. But there is no need for panic. So very quickly, let me go over again. You can find this by doing your own research on Google and just typing in the worst plagues in history, the worst pestilences in history. So here they are in a quick rundown. In 165 AD, that's the 2nd century AD, what they called the Antonine Plague killed 5 million people. In what was called the Plague of Justinian in the 6th century, think about this please, 25 million people died. Now listen folks, as of this morning, all right, remember, now I'm filming 3 weeks ahead of airtime, all right? But as of this morning, there were known, confirmed, reported cases of coronavirus 315,442. Compare that with the 6th century Justinian plague in which 25 million people died. Then, in the 4th century, the worst plague that the world has ever seen, known as the Black Death, the Black Plague. This was bubonic plague, spread by fleas, carried by rats. 100 to 200 million people died. Up to 50% of the population of Europe died. How many cases of corona are there? 315,442 as of this morning. Look at the comparison, folks. Not even close. Then, in the 19th century, the flu pandemic took the lives of 1 million. In what they call the 6th cholera pandemic of 1910 to 1911, 800,000 people died. In the flu pandemic of 1918, here in the United States, well, it was worldwide as well, 20 to 50 million people died. And then, of course, there is the Asian flu of 1956 to 1958 that had a death toll of 2 million people. So, when we look at the cold, hard, historical facts, all right, available to anyone, it is more than apparent that what we are experiencing right now, certainly up to this point today, is not the worst thing the world has ever seen. Let me reiterate, as of this morning, today is March the 22nd, 2020. It will be aired on April the 10th, 2020. But as of today, there were 315,442 reported confirmed cases. There were 13,591 deaths, but 95,892 people have fully recovered. There have been 109,483 closed cases of coronavirus. 95,892 people have fully recovered. Now look, it's bad in Italy. In Italy, they've had 53,578 cases with a total death count of 4,825. I mean, it's so tragic. Our hearts go out to the Italian people, just as they do even to the Chinese. Now, one of the good things is the Chinese have had no reported cases for at least 2 days. According to this statistic, this morning, they have 46 new cases. But if that's the case, then they went 2, perhaps 3 days without any reported new cases. And look, there are even countries around the world in which there are no cases. And we hope and pray that continues. Do you get the point I'm making, folks? There literally is no need to panic. Now look, I am hearing, they had some riots in the parking lot of Walmart in New York City of people having fistfights over toilet tissue. Oh, good grief. In Ardmore, Oklahoma, one man was carrying his goods out from the store. Some people pulled up in a van, jumped out with a baseball bat, hit him over the head, and stole his stuff. Now, thankfully, the police caught those people. They're now in jail. I wonder if they think that's worth it. A friend of mine who lives in Kalispell, Montana. Hey, look, Kalispell, Montana it's in the absolute middle of nowhere, right? And a friend of mine who lives there said they had a fist fight in Walmart over toilet paper. To me, that's almost beyond imagination. And it's so sad that people would become so fearful, so selfish. Absolutely so self-centered. And we witness this in different places of people going into stores and attempting to buy all of the hand sanitizer, all of the toilet tissue, so that nobody else can have any. Oh, 2 brothers in Tennessee, they did that. They started selling hand sanitizer at exorbitant prices on eBay. Guess what? The government stepped in, arrested them. They're now facing federal charges of price gouging. Oh, they volunteered now to give all the hand sanitizer away. Doesn't change the fact that they were trying to profit from the suffering of others. It's shocking to me, literally shocking to me, how quickly some people revert to basically what is nothing other than animal behavior. Are we so selfish? Are we so self-centered that we would actually deprive our fellow citizens of what they need to carry through? Are we so greedy and covetous that we would stockpile goods that other people need to survive? Listen, folks, we need to love one another. We need not be covetous. We need not be greedy. We need not be selfish. We need to share with one another. A friend of mine came to the house yesterday. He was telling me that his wife is kind of a hoarder. And before this epidemic ever came along, she had been stockpiling goods. Not because they're survivalists or because they're fearful. It's just kind of the way she is. And he goes, Don, we've got a bunch of great big packages of Charmin toilet paper. He said, if you need any, just let me know. I'll be glad to share. Folks, listen. Hard times, difficult times, painful times, dangerous times can bring us together as a people. And you know, historically in America, that's sort of what has happened. That's what's happening in Italy. That's what's happening around the world as people band together to help one another survive this horrific situation. Others who are basically nothing more than selfish, covetous, greedy animals. And I'm sorry, I make no apology for using that terminology. They're going to do what is good for them, even if it hurts other people. And the shocking thing is, some of them would even call themselves Christians. Folks, there's no Christianity to be found in that. There is no love of Christ to be found in that. So, for this very first segment, very first half, if you please, of this program, I wanted to share with you, number one, the historical fact that what we are witnessing in regard to the Corona Pandemic is not, absolutely is not, the worst thing the world has ever seen. It doesn't even approach it. And secondly, what I've shared with you this morning is that as of today, keeping in mind when I'm filming this, there are some really, really positive things that are being reported. Fewer cases here, fewer cases there. And some drugs with potentially great effect are now being tested. Vaccines are already being tested. You know, it's absolutely deplorable to me that the American press wants to sensationalize every nugget of bad news and make it seem worse than it actually is. Keeping in mind, it's bad, okay? It's not good, but there are good things that are happening. And the American press, I can't speak for the press in other countries. I certainly cannot speak for the press in socialist dictatorships that will not tell their people any truth. But lamentably, in the American press, number one, some in the American press, they want the networks to take Donald Trump off of air and not allow him to give his news briefings. Why? Well, because they claim he's lying, even though his own medical authorities are giving him the information that he's sharing. Number two, the American public focuses strictly and solely on the negative. They never report the positive. It is absolutely reprehensible what is done by the American socialist, and I'll use that term, far left, radical left-wing socialist media. Some politicians on the left, and even Bernie Sanders, and this is going off the chart a little bit, Bernie Sanders said, we need to nationalize all of these companies who make the respirators and who make this and who make that. We need to nationalize them right now. We need to take control. Well, you know what? That's a favorite tactic of socialistic dictatorships. When they nationalize things, they never give them back. They take control of society. They tell you how much you can buy. They tell you what you can have. They control every fabric of your life. In case you haven't noticed, I'm opposed to socialism. I am opposed to the radical left-wing politics that go on in America. But I digress, okay? The question of the day, the question before us is the coronavirus a sign that we're living in the last days? Well, let's face it, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, when Jesus was asked, tell us, when shall these things be? And these things, according to Mark and Luke, was nothing but to follow Jerusalem. But Matthew, good faithful Jew that he was, writing in Hebraic style, in which the term parousia and end of the age were events related to the end of the Old Covenant world, not the end of time, not the end of the Christian age, etc. But he uses those terms nonetheless so that his Hebrew audience would understand what's going on. Because you see, as I've shared with you on this program over and over and over again, historically, biblically, the day of the Lord was when God intervened in history to use this nation to judge that nation. It was never an end of time event. It was never an end of the literal material cosmos. The disciples knew that the destruction of Jerusalem that Jesus had predicted was to be the end of their world. Not the end of time, the end of their covenant world. That's why I call this covenant eschatology. All right. In response to their question, Jesus said, let no man deceive you. And listen, I got to tell you, Jesus' words here are so powerful. They're so applicable. When you get on YouTube, when you listen to the radio evangelist, to the TV evangelist, and they're pointing their finger at you and they're telling you this is a sign of the end, folks, do not believe them. They are not telling you the truth. Notice that Jesus said, yes, there are going to be earthquake, pestilence, peril, famine, wars, rumors of wars. But you see, in Mark and in Luke especially, Jesus said, don't let your heart be troubled. These are the beginning of birth pangs, Matthew 24, verse 8. But the end is not immediately. In other words, it's not at hand. Listen to me very, very carefully here. Even if the corona was related to the last days, and it's not, but even if it was, it would not be a sign that the end is near, because Jesus said, okay, there's going to be wars, rumors of wars, famines, earthquake, pestilence, but the end is not near. See? Those are Jesus' words. So when mass media, so-called prophecy experts stand up and say, this is a sign that the end is near, folks, don't believe them. Don't let your heart be troubled. Just this morning, and once again, I'm doing this in March the 22nd, program to be aired April the 10th. All right. Just this morning, someone sent me a link to a website sponsored by some dispensational people. Now, mind you, I have a great deal of love for the people who are involved in dispensationalism. I don't want to be seen as harsh. I don't want to be seen as critical. But this message must be seen. It must be heard. Dispensationalism has a history of fear-mongering. Dispensational has a history of spreading paranoia. How many times have dispensationalists told us the end is going to be, let's see, 1917, 1918, 1919, 1925. Oh, wait. 1918, yes. Oh, wait. No. 1948. No, that wasn't it. That was just a sign of the end. Oh, that meant 1988. Well, something happened. Oh, so this generation doesn't refer to 40 years. It actually first refers to 125 years, Hal Lindsey claimed when his predictions failed. 88 reasons why the rapture will be in 1988. Whoops. Write another book. 89 reasons why the rapture will be in 1989. Folks, they spread fear, they spread paranoia, and they took people's money into bankruptcy. Now, if you can tell that I really get uptight about this, you're right. This is a horrible message. It is a horrible message. So just this morning, someone sent me a link to a website, and the title of the big article is the Coronoa Pandemic, the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Once again, this is a false narrative. Let me point out a few facts from Scripture that you need to have in your heart, in your mind, in your soul. Let's talk about the Great Tribulation in the moment or two I have left. Jesus predicted, and he told his living, breathing apostles, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, then let those in Judea flee. Point number one, the Great Tribulation would not come until the setting up of the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation would be set up in Judea because they would see it set up and they would flee Judea. So let me ask you, when someone today suggests, oh, coronavirus, it may be the beginning of the Great Tribulation. Well, folks, if that's the truth, then where, or I should say, when and what is the abomination of desolation that was set up in Israel just about 2 months ago? Where was it? What was it? If you can't point to the abomination of desolation, then the coronavirus is not a sign that we're in the last days. Hey, thanks for joining me. Let not your heart be troubled. I'll see you next week.